So we're going to dive head first into the topic of the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about, horror films and women's, dynamics in horror movies. And as someone who watches a lot of horror movies, I see this happen quite a lot, and I'm sure you have as well, Elle. That's why we're
Yeah.
going to be talking about a couple of different movies throughout the podcast that very much like just kind of cover the issue of women being ignored or women not being believed during a horror film, because this happens a lot in just any kind of horror movie where something is going on, there's something mysterious, something suspicious, something is happening, and there will always be some protagonist that's like, maybe we should leave this abandoned cabin in the middle of the woods. Maybe
hmm
we should, you know, figure out what's going on. Maybe we shouldn't trust this person. And there'll be someone else who's like, no, it's fine. You're overthinking it. You're worried about nothing. Da, 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 da.
hmm
And I'm very excited to talk about this today because I did rewatch Midsommar for
hmm
the
Yeah.
podcast. It is
Me
one of
too.
it's one of my favorite movies, I'd say.
hmm
Um,
It was so good. I actually had it was I think my only second time seeing it because I saw it in cinema when it came out, and then I watched it this week again with my friend, the same friend who I saw it in the cinema with.
mm,
And I remember when I saw it in the cinema, just like laughing so hard when they just like bashed the people's heads in with the hammer and stuff, and when the people drove off. It was so funny, and I remember it being like so shocking the first time. And it's honestly not any less shocking the second time, but I
mm.
think, I mean, with all films and like especially kind of horror thriller films when you like know the twist, it's so interesting watching it again, just seeing all the little details that you missed. And it's just such a good film. And like it's almost 3 hours long, but it like or like 2.5 hours long or something, and it zooms by. Like it's such a fun film.
Yeah, I do have to agree with you. I did not laugh when they bashed in
it
the old
was
people's heads in.
it was the shock. It was the shock. I was like, oh my God.
Okay.
And then yeah, yeah.
I was actually with that scene happen, like in particular, I just kind of like I feel like I kind of knew what was gonna happen, but I was like in disbelief of
Mm.
like they're not gonna throw these people off the cliff, right? Like what else
Yeah.
is gonna go on here? Like I was really like concerned because I felt like before they go to the cliff, they're kind of like presenting these very old people to everybody there, and strange because it's the first time I'm seeing anybody who looks older than like 50 in this commune, because
Mm.
everyone seems very young and very healthy. There doesn't seem to be that many elders besides like I think the main lady who's kind of like
Yeah.
seems to be running the show, but these people are like very old. So I'm thinking like, okay, this everyone like how do these people live this long? And I remember doing my research, apparently in like Viking villages, I think, or like societies where there are Vikings, because they had such like a healthy lifestyle, they would have to have some kind of ceremony to end their lives because there was no way for these people to just die from an illness or anything like
Oh my
that.
God.
Yeah, they
They're
just
too
live.
powerful.
They just live so long. So that's kind of like where the inspiration came from. And I think that the
Wow.
hammers also Ari Aster saw the hammers in like a museum or something, so that's where
Oh,
he got inspiration to bring those
that's so
in.
interesting.
Yes.
I think I was like more shocked than anything at just the like level of like gore in the film
Mm-hmm.
because I think when we see film or yeah, when we see film gore, it's either just like a lot of blood kind of spurting out or like there'll be some slasher things of people like getting cut open or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But in Midsommar and also in Hereditary, kind of the body horror is
Oh yeah.
so like realistic and just like they just kind of go further than you expect. You're like, oh, they're not actually going to show like a decapitated head or like a
Mm.
crushed in skull, and then they do. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes. It's actually been a while since I've watched Hereditary. I think I watched it when it first had come out, but I haven't rewatched it since because that movie low key kind of scarred me. Uh,
It was really scary. It was actually a really
yes,
scary film.
it
When she's
is.
crawling on the wall, I
Oh my
remember like watching
gosh.
it and just being like, oh my God, this is terrifying.
Yeah, it was a lot. Definitely, it was a
Yeah.
lot. And I think with the scene in Midsummer, the cliff scene, it really is the first time where any rational person would be like, okay, it's time to go. It's time to leave. It's
hmm
time to pack our bags. Time to get out of there. And I feel like when the couple was trying to leave, everybody, I guess like some of the people in the, I don't know, community were kind of like, oh, you don't have to leave, you don't have to go. And then like when they're firmly like, we are leaving, we're going, they're like, okay, but we'll drive you. You know what I mean? And of course, the guy somehow leaves before his girlfriend, and one of the people in the commune makes some kind of weird excuse of like, oh well, he left with this dude on the truck, and like there is enough room for you unless you want to slip on his lap, and like we want to like try and obey the safety laws when we're driving. And then they're like, okay, but we could take you to the train and he'll be like waiting for you. And it's this weird excuse of like where she's kind of like, okay, she'll just go with it because she just wants to leave and get out of there. But like as a viewer, like me, of course, because I know this is a horror movie, I'm like, no, this
Yeah.
is not true. This is not right, because you're gonna use the excuse of like, oh yeah, we care about the safety laws and the traffic laws in this country. And upon my second rewatch, I found it ridiculous that like he used that excuse, because you guys have a oracle who is the child of incest. You obviously do not care that much about the
Yeah.
laws of the land.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I was thinking like if that happened, I think I'd be so shocked. But I feel like I'd be like I'd be trying not to be rude, so I'd be like,
Mm.
"Oh, how interesting. What an interesting culture you guys have." And then I think I would definitely like get killed. Like if I were
Yeah.
in that situation. I'd be like I feel like I'd be with my friends and they'd be like, "This is like so messed up." And I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, but it's their culture, guys. Like let's." And I would die because of that. But also, I think one of the biggest things I noticed on the rewatch as well is just how horrible um, Danny's boyfriend is.
Christian? Yeah, he sucks.
Yes, I hate him
Yes.
so much because I remember thinking, like after the first one, I was like, oh, like he sucks. I remember seeing all the like people were like making memes of like the letterbox reviews and stuff, and I kind
Mm.
of forgot like just how bad he was until I
Yeah.
rewatched, and I was like, every single scene he was in, like me and my friend were like, he is the worst person. Like he is
Yeah.
so terrible. I hate him so much.
And that's the thing that's interesting about Midsummer, because a lot of the times when you're watching movies where the woman is kind of like being the canary in the coal mine and being like, hey, there's something wrong here, there's something going on here, a lot of times she is kind of like dismissed and pushed aside, and then she dies ultimately. But it's different for Danny because she is being ignored countless, like all the time, by Christian. And
Yeah,
also, like,
yeah.
everybody else in the group don't already like Danny, so of course they're not going to listen to her and they don't care what she thinks, and they're already there
Hmm.
for their own kind of motivations,
Hmm.
like Christian is there because he wants a vacation, and then he decides to like basically steal his friend's idea for a
Hmm.
project, even though I don't remember the character name. I just remember the actor's name, which is William Jackson Harper, and like
Yes. Well, I always think of him as Chidi from The Good Place. And so I always just think of him like, oh, Chidi. And then when I was watching, I was like, where's Chidi? And I'm like, I know his name's not Chidi, but I'm like, I just know him
yes,
so firmly as Chidi in my mind.
yes, but he's already been doing the research. Like he's already been taking notes, he's already been taking pictures and photos and everything. Like he has been meticulously working on this paper. Like he wants to make his project about this festival. And
Hmm.
Christian just decided to kind of like, just wants to write his name on the report already shows that he is someone who really doesn't care about other people's feelings. He's only really
Hmm.
out for himself. So
Hmm.
whenever like Danny is trying to be like, hey, there's something wrong here, he's not going to listen to her because he doesn't
Hmm.
really like care about how she feels truly. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And it's just icky how he acts. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I was gonna ask you actually, because like with that story point, and this is kind of what we were talking about with the Living Dead, of like the director didn't go in making it a commentary, but when there's only one black character, things inevitably become larger than maybe they're intended to. Do you think
Mm-hmm.
the point between William Jackson Harper's character and Christian like stealing his idea and jumping on his work, do you think that is like a commentary on like white people stealing black people, like from black people, or like capitalizing on their labor and stuff? Or do you or like because I think that's one of the instances where I'm like maybe it's intentional, maybe it's not, but I feel like with there only being one black person in the film, you can
Mm-hmm.
start like reading things this way, in ways that like we wouldn't have read it if it was just another white person.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with that idea. I just looked at my notes, and William Jackson Harper's character's name is Josh, and hold on, yeah, Josh. So when Christian tries to steal Josh's idea, it is exactly that. It's just like white people trying to like take credit for black people's ideas, but it also just shows how he is so selfish to the point where like he doesn't really listen to his girlfriend. He doesn't care about his girlfriend. He just also doesn't care about the fact that his friends are there. Like his friend Josh is really there for academic reasons, and he's
Mm-hmm.
purely there just for like like an vacation. And
Mm-hmm.
if he just so happens to write his report on the festival, the same thing that Josh is writing his report on, then like fine, whatever, who
Mm-hmm.
cares? But I also feel like William Jackson Harper's character is something of an insert, so to speak. And I don't know how to explain this, but there are times where I'm watching a movie and I can tell when certain characters are kind of just like kind of written, and they're just like, this is the baseline character, this is who they are, but there's no thought or like emphasis on their race as a character. So William Jackson
Mm-hmm.
Harper being cast in this role is really just kind of like, oh, we're casting this like black guy in this film. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
for diversity's sake, but I feel like if you wrote this character with the intention of him being a black character, he would not be acting in the way that Josh acts in this film, because Josh is kind of reckless in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
He
Yeah.
starts asking questions about the commune that he kind of shouldn't be asking questions about, and it's kind of clear that people are getting annoyed. He seems to ignore it. Like
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
him.
because I was noticing there are some things of like Will Poulter's character. I think his name is Mark, like
Mm,
being on the tree and stuff. And I was like, there's some things that were
yes.
just so typical, like I don't know, white American of like. And also when they were sitting at the table and they all started eating before everybody else was eating, I was like, this is
Mm-hmm,
such a like very much like a white American kind of thing of like not being aware of other cultures and customs and just
mm-hmm,
kind of the like American like whatever with the US like centrism kind of like philosophy.
mm-hmm,
Um and then I feel like if you are like especially like a person of color and you're aware of the cultural differences, you would be more aware of like how different people like from different cultures act, you know what I
mm-hmm.
mean? And like would be more aware of like I don't know. There's not that same kind of naivety and like disrespect that comes from ignorance, I guess.
Yeah, because Josh is freaked out by what happened at the cliff, but he's not freaked out to the point where he wants to leave like Danny
Hmm.
does. He's
Hmm.
freaked out because like he knew what was gonna happen because he
Yeah.
knows the history. Like he understood it. He's a really smart guy, and then he's surprised by it happening. And I feel like if Josh was a character who was written to be like a black person, he would be like, oh, we're doing this? Okay.
Yeah.
Can I get my keys back? Can I get my
Yeah.
stuff back? Can I get I
Yeah.
actually don't want to be here anymore. I
Yeah.
think I'm
Yeah,
good.
guys, it's been so fun. Thank
It's
you for
been
the
great.
invite. I have so
Yes.
much content for my thesis. I'm gonna
Mm,
go home and get a head start. Yeah.
yeah. I think I'm good
Yeah.
actually. I think I'm all right.
Yeah.
And him sneaking
Hmm.
out in the middle of the night to take photos of their sacred texts, I feel like is a huge no-no, you know.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
because he's taking pictures of the
Hmm.
Flash. That's the one thing that pissed me
Yeah, I was
off.
thinking about that too. I was like, guys, I was like, also, I was like, it's light enough. The sun hasn't even set. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like a spotlight on it.
Yes.
Anyways, yeah. Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking as well. Like, the thing of like being aware of stealing from other cultures and like not properly respecting them. I was like, it seems like a very white person thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was interested because it's interesting to kind of think of like, oh, is this like colorblind casting or whatever? But then it's like, how does the race of the person playing the character actually affect like kind of dynamics, whether or not they were intentional?
Mm-hmm.
But like going back to the thing on the cliff, and I was just like the disrespect of Danny throughout like or the disrespect to her for the whole thing. I was like, she just lost her parents and her sister to murder suicide,
Oh,
and no one
oh,
wanted to be like, oh, by the way, this is a suicide ritual. I was like, babes,
hello.
why did nobody want to like warn her, like trigger warning suicide for this? Like, you
Yeah.
know?
If you enjoy watching these highlights, subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications so you know when a new video is uploaded. That's also why I don't like Pele, because it's very clear that
Yeah.
he's trying to get with Danny, and he's the only person who
Mm-hmm.
actually like shows like any like real remorse towards her
Mm-hmm.
losing her whole family.
Mm-hmm.
And then him kind of being like, oh well, it's normal, like it's fine, it's just a
Mm-hmm.
ritual, it's okay, and like him not like caring that she's gonna see something absolutely
Mm-hmm.
horrible.
And
Like,
also like using that kind of and like like catching her unaware with such a graphic thing and like knowing her backstory kind of just like makes her more vulnerable, and like
Mm-hmm.
using that kind of extreme emotions to like further divide her and the group, and also just like further kind of like you had to just jump on her vulnerability and
Mm-hmm.
manipulate her into like joining the cult and everything. It's just it is so insane because it's like I don't think any of like the guys are like great people, and they're all just so
No.
disrespectful to Danny. But it's like
Yes.
crazy how on the surface level, anyways, like Pele cares the most about Danny, and like maybe he even
Mm-hmm.
like beyond that he does care the most about Danny, but ultimately it's for like selfish reasons of her joining the commune. But he's the only one that like remembers her birthday, and he's the only one that seems to actually like care about how she's doing,
Mm-hmm.
which is insane. It's insane.
Yeah. Um, and I do find it interesting how Ari Aster, he talked about how he was going through a breakup when he was fighting
Oh,
Midsommar,
okay.
which kind of explains like the beginning of the film when it's after they leave the party and they go back to Danny's apartment. And I want to say there's a small scene in the car where they're in a taxi, and then Christian looks at Danny. And he like does this like kind of smile. He keeps doing that to her. Like he keeps giving her this
Mm.
weird like fake smile. It's like supposed to be like reassuring, and really it's just like it's
Yeah,
horrible.
it's a grimace. It's a grimace. Yeah. And it's like with stuff like that as well, but it's so performative. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you may think that you're like, doing this gesture for the sake of being reassuring, but like humans are so well attuned to like reading people's faces. Like we know when someone's like being fake or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, if anything, it's probably making her feel worse, you know?
Absolutely, it
Yeah.
absolutely is, and I feel like Christian does not have any good friends, but also Danny, I feel like she only seems like she has one friend from
Yeah.
what we saw in the movie. But if I was Danny's friend, I would tell her to break up with Christian. Like, don't even go on the trip. Let him go on the trip and stay your ass at home, girl.
Me too. Me
Okay?
too. But also, I think like you could hear from the way she was like talking to her friend that she was putting a lot of the responsibility on herself. Like she was gaslighting herself of being like, oh, I think
Yes.
I'm leaning on him too much. Like I think, I'm
Yes.
putting too much on him. It's like your family is like you're at that point, it's like you think your sister is gonna kill herself. And it's like I don't
Mm-hmm.
think there's much, you know, of a threshold of being like, I'm leaning on him too much. And she
Mm-hmm.
was literally just like, I'm really worried. And he was like, it's probably fine. It's like, yeah, so he is kind of like belittled and gaslit her so much into she's doing it to herself, and like so her friends probably don't even know how bad it is, which is
Mm-hmm.
I think very common in those kind of dynamics as well. um yeah, and it's just insane.
It's horrible because he doesn't really care about her. Like, he doesn't really love her. And it's clear that they've been in this relationship for so long that, she genuinely cares about this guy. Like, she is a genuine person. But because Christian doesn't care about her as much as he does, he thinks that she doesn't really care about him as much as he like does for her. So he feels like everything she's doing is to like spite him in a way. So whenever
Hmm.
she is calling him about like her sister being upset, or when she's talking about him leaving for a trip, or when she's talking to him about this commune clearly being a danger to them and their lives, he feels like she is being conniving and manipulating him and trying to like take the joy out of his life. And that's not it at all. And there was this
Yeah.
deleted scene that I saw on YouTube for the movie where they're basically like doing this ritual that's supposed to be like a sacrifice to one of their gods, and they gave up their most wonderful tree, like the tree that bore the best fruit, and they gave up their finest jewels. And they thought, oh, well, there has to be something else that we can give in sacrifice. And this kid offers themselves up in sacrifice. And because these people speak Swedish, I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
the outsiders don't know what's going on. So they're just kind of watching. So when the kid first goes up, we know that the kid's gonna sacrifice himself, but the other people don't know. So Danny slowly realizes what's going on, and because like the kid is like dressed in like this weird fish, like the kid is wearing the white clothes, but over it is like this giant fishnet, and there are like phones and like other heavy things attached to the fishnet, and then they tie the kid's feet together, and then they kind of pick him up. One person gets him by the elbows, person gets him by his feet, and starts swinging him.
Hmm.
And they put a
Oh wait,
rock.
I think I've seen this. Are they about to like drown him? Are they about to like throw him
Yes,
in waters? I have
yes,
seen this clip. Yeah. Yeah.
yes. And like, cause Danny steps up, it says don't do it, two other people step up as well, as if this is like rehearsed or like, oh, they weren't actually gonna drown
Mhm.
him. We were actually gonna do
Oh,
it. Like it's fine. And then she walks away,
wow.
and then Christian is kind of like following her almost, and he of course is treating her like she's being over dramatic or like, oh, you're worrying too much. Oh, this is just like a play, and like also after they
They were
stop
about to
the
kill a
they're about to
child.
kill this child. Yes. And then after they stop it, she looks back at Christian and he's laughing. Like, oh, God.
I hate him so
He's
much.
so
That is
annoying.
literally like that, but that's the whole thing with like the genre as well. Like literally, like it's like women being like someone's gonna die, and people are like, "You're being dramatic," and then someone dies, and they're like, "Wait, what?" And it's like, "Oh my gosh, it's yeah,
Like, what did he
that's
say?
so funny."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually hate him so much.
He is so annoying and so self centered. And the whole argument between him and Danny after that um, little scene is such an eye opener into the relationship because I am kind of glad that they deleted that scene from the film because when you watch just the theatrical release, that version of the movie, you see the Hagra people as this kind of like peaceful group of people that just follow their customs and follow their rituals and follow their practices, and they're just trying to have a nice festival, you know. So of course you would think there's nothing to worry about, there's nothing to fear. These people are not a danger to you. They're only here to, you know, they want you to participate, they want you to have fun. But Danny, you know, realizes that a lot of the people that came with them are slowly disappearing, and there's no explanation as to where these people are. Like, where did the couple
Mhm.
go? Did they actually get to the train station? Where's Mark? Where's Josh? Why is it that it's just Christian and Danny? And I remember the scene when Christian is talking to the elders, and like Danny's on one side and Pelly's on the other side, and he's like thanking them for allowing them to be there for so long. And then just look at
Yeah,
him like, are you being so for real right now? Are you being
yeah.
so serious? Like he's
Yeah,
like
because I
so
remember I think
grateful.
like she goes up and she's like, "Oh, have you seen?" And it's like the girl who's in the couple. I forget her name. It's like, "Oh, have you seen her?" And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh yeah, she went to the station, whatever." And then Christian just looks at her and then turns away. And then it's like, "Anyways, can you tell me more about this?" And like Danny
Mm-hmm.
is clearly so upset, and like he just doesn't care. And it's just like her emotions just completely ignored, like again
Mm-hmm.
and again and again.
Yeah. And the
Yeah,
thing is that it's a little bit different from like, you know, Rosemary's Baby, because we kind of see in Rosemary's Baby that there is this sense of control over her and her body, and it's obviously sinister, you know, because we could see that it is, but in Midsummer it's not meant to be seen as sinister, because at the end of the movie she's crowned the May Queen, and she
yeah,
almost kind of like succumbs to the cult, but that's because like she's lost so much. You know, she's lost
hmm,
her family, she lost her terrible boyfriend, and she has like no one
yeah,
else. And when she really thinks about it, if she leaves this commune, what else does she have? Like, she could either be the
hmm,
May Queen or she could like die, because they're not opposed to
yeah,
like just killing people here. And I feel
hmm,
like a lot of people look at Midsummer and they see it as like a happy ending, you know, for Danny, because like her boyfriend's terrible, he sucks, he's self-centered, he's trash. He literally had an orgy with a girl who I think is supposed to be portrayed as someone who's like fairly young. Even the
yeah.
actress is like 20 at the time of filming. I think she's supposed to be seen as like, you know, an adolescent
Yeah,
almost.
teenager. Because it was like, oh, she was only just approved for mating or something. They like said that line. Yeah,
As in, she just got her period. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's kind of gross, and I feel like a lot of people see it as a happy ending because of all these good things that have led to Danny being accepted into a new community, but it's definitely not a happy ending because we've seen all the things these people have done. Like, what
Hmm.
happened to the last May Queen? You know, what happened to
Yeah,
her?
yeah. And also, but it is interesting because I noticed like with this film of like her emotions are ignored and they're belittled,
Mm-hmm.
and then the only people who acknowledge her emotions are Pele, and then the like kind of chorus of women who are like crying with her, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like the first time like people are actually acknowledging her pain and like resonating it and like reflecting it, and like she doesn't have to hide this pain anymore. And then she finally, has this kind of like comfort and stuff.
Since you're at the end of the video, don't forget to like the video and leave a comment down below. If you want early access to these highlights, join our Patreon. Patrons have access to our entire archive, including full-length videos. Patrons also have the opportunity to choose a topic for our podcast, and they get the opportunity to be a guest. Join now.